Hi, welcome back. In this video we will see how to do failover. So as of now my cluster is running with 7 nodes and I have 3 buckets, and my configuration is this bucket is having 2 replicas, this bucket also have 2 replicas. For this demonstration purpose I have modified my bucket settings with 2 replicas for all buckets. Now I want to failover this node, the IP ending with 0.6. Click on failover. You will be prompted with 2 options. Select Graceful Failover. Graceful Failover is in progress. You can also see this from the Activity tab. It will take some time depending on the size of the data on your cluster. Failover is completed. You can see the warning rebalance is recommended. Some data does not have desired replicas. And there is one more warning. Additional active servers required to provide the desired number of replicas, because we have mentioned replica 2 for all the buckets. So which means 1 original plus 2 replica copies. Total it requires 3 data nodes. But as of now we have only 2 data nodes. This one got failed over. So until we do the rebalance we will be having 1 replica less. So this is also an important point. When a node failed over, although immediate manual intervention is not required, we have to do the rebalance as early as possible, because we have 1 less replica until we replace this specific node and do rebalance. So I haven't done rebalance yet. Let's see we are able to access the data or not. Let me query data from REST bucket. I am able to get the data for doc1. Let's quickly query all these docs. I am able to query all the 5 documents in the REST bucket. So as we discussed, replica V buckets got promoted to active. So that is why we are able to access all the 5 documents from this bucket. So the only problem here is until we do the rebalance, we will be always having 1 replica less. So let me do the rebalance. Rebalance is completed. But you are still able to see this warning. Until you replace that node in the cluster, you will be getting this warning, because we have configured more number of replicas than the actual servers in our cluster. To avoid this error, either you have to add a new node or you can reduce the replicas configuration in your cluster. Let me add back that node to demonstrate failover using CLI and REST API. This was a data service node. Add server. Add server. Click on rebalance. Rebalance is completed now. Now you no longer see that warning. Since the failover and rebalance is taking time, I'm just providing the commands here for your reference. I will be doing the failover one more time using CLI or REST API, but not both, to save some time. Now let me connect to the node IP ending with 0.6. Taking the external IP. Connecting through putty. This is the command to perform graceful failover with REST API. Admin username, Couchbase is my admin password, and any one of the cluster node IPs. Hitting start graceful failover endpoint, and the node I am going to failover is the IP ending with 0.6. Copying this. Let's validate from the UI. You can see here graceful failover already initiated. It will take some time depending on the data on your cluster. Failover is completed. Now it is prompting for rebalance. You can see graceful failover completed successfully. Now once you click the rebalance, this node will be out of the cluster. So when a failed over node comes back online, we will be prompted with two options, full recovery and delta recovery. We will be discussing about this in the next lecture. For now, let me do the rebalance using REST API. I want to add one point here. There are few situations where we opt for graceful failover only in non-production environments. So in case if OS patching is scheduled on this node 0.6, what we will do graceful failover just like we did, and we will connect to that node and stop Couchbase service on it. Stop Couchbase service on it. It is running fine. Let me stop it. Now if you go to the cluster, this node become unresponsive. What we will do, we will wait, and once OS team completes the patch, we will bring up Couchbase, or it will be automatically up when the OS team reboots the server. And in few seconds, it will pop up two options, full recovery and delta recovery. We will discuss this in the next lecture. For now, I am opting for delta recovery, and I will do rebalance with REST API command. Now you see the status 200. Okay. Let's validate whether the rebalance really triggered from the UI or not. You can see rebalance completed successfully. Let me add the node back to the cluster. Add server and click rebalance. Rebalance is completed successfully. I want to mention one point about graceful failover. When there is a OS patch scheduled on servers, I see people opting for graceful failover in non-production environment only. Opting this option in production environment is taking high risk. If we need to patch one node, we have to remove and rebalance, and during the addition also we have to add and rebalance. It requires two rebalances. So that is why people simply do graceful failover, get it patched, and then add it back, and then click rebalance. However, you can save time using swap rebalance option as well. That I will show in the later lectures, which means when you are planning for database or OS patch, you have to first prepare an empty node, Couchbase installed on it, kind of extra node, buffer node, which is not already part of the cluster. Then we will add that node first to the cluster. Don't do rebalance, just add it. Until you rebalance, it won't be serving traffic, right, as we discussed. Then remove one old node. Once a node is added, remove one old node from the cluster, then click rebalance. Then all the data from the old server will be transferred directly to new server that is going to be added. That's called swap rebalance. It will not disturb the data on the other servers. You can do this swap rebalance with equal number of nodes. I mean, if you are adding two new nodes, you can remove two old nodes, then click rebalance. Similarly, add three nodes, remove three nodes at a time with a single rebalance, so on and so forth. So this is a strategy few people use for any kind of maintenance activity. However, this is not recommended for production environment. For production environment, you can use swap rebalance option that we discussed a few minutes back. Now let me show you how to do hard failover. There is a warning. Failing over the node will remove it from the cluster and activate a replica. Replica vbuckets will become active after this failover. So operations currently in flight are not yet replicated. So there is a data loss. In case if there are any operations that are in progress on this particular node, those will be failed and will not be replicated to other nodes. And here is a suggestion from Couchbase. Consider using remove and rebalance instead of failover to avoid any data loss. Click on failover node. It will immediately take out the node from the cluster. You can see failover completed successfully. This is very fast when compared with graceful failover. And there is a high risk in case of large clusters. All the connections from the failed over node will be flooded to the surviving nodes on the cluster. If your cluster is running with limited resources, there will be huge pressure on the existing cluster nodes. You have to think twice when you are selecting hard failover. In the real world, we never use hard failover until unless there is something really wrong with that particular node. Let me rebalance. As you see, rebalance completed successfully. Let me add it back. server added, doing rebalance. Rebalance completed successfully. Now I will do hard failover one more time using CLI. Couchbase CLI, failover, any one of the cluster node IPs, admin username, admin password, and the server IP which I want to hard failover. Copying this, executing it. Server failed over. Let's validate from the UI. You can see failover completed successfully. Now let's rebalance. You can see rebalance started. You can also check from the UI. Rebalance completed successfully. Let me add the server back to the cluster. Click on rebalance. Rebalance started. Provided these commands for your reference. If you want to automate the things, we can use these commands inside a shell script. Rebalance completed successfully. Since my rebalance is taking more time, I will reduce the replicas for my buckets. So when you change the replica settings for your buckets, a rebalance is required. You can see the warning, rebalance recommended, some data does not have the desired replicas configuration. So since we are reducing it, the extra replicas will be deleted during the compaction. Now click rebalance. Rebalance is completed. Now all my buckets is having only one replica. So that is all about graceful failover and hard failover. In the next video we will see more about failover.